Hello! My name is Leo and welcome to another reading of the Elder Scrolls. Today we're going to be reading Ice and Chitin by Cletus Spitic. Sure. The tale dates to the year 833 of Second Era, after General Talos had taken the name Tiber Septon and began his conquest of Tamriel. One of his commanding officers, Beatria of... oh my god. Yilidos, had been surprised in an ambush while returning from a meeting with the Emperor. She and her personal guard of 5 soldiers barely escaped and were separated from their army. They fled across the desolate, sleet-painted rocky cliffs by foot. The attack had been so sudden, they had not even the time to don armor or get to their horses. "If we get to Goalless Ridge," hollered Lieutenant Ascus. Gestured. I gotta say this name, so I need to remember it. It's Lieutenant Ascutus, gesturing towards a peak off to the mist, his voice barely discernible over the wind. "We can meet the Legion! You're stationed in Pornock!" Is that his voice now? Okay, sure. Whatever. Betia looked across the craggy landscape, through the windswept hoary trees, and shook her head. "Not that way! We'll be... What are you doing? We'll be struck down No, that's the same Scottish accent. "Not that way! We'll be struck down before we make it halfway to the mountain! You can see the horse's breath through the trees!" Wait, say that again? Will be struck down. I see, because they're being chased by horse people. She directed her guard toward a ruined old keep on the frozen isthmus of Nerone. Okay. Nerone. Across the bay from Goalless Ridge. Jutting out on a promontory of rock, it was like many other abandoned castles in northern Skyrim. Remnants of Remenin Cyrodiil's protective shield against the continent of Akavar. Wait. Akavar's down south. Actually, it's east. Southeast. The point is, it's not north, which is what Skyrim is. Whatever. As they reached their destination and made a fire, they could hear the army of the war chiefs of Dranstra behind them, making camp on the land southwest, blocking the only escape but the sea. Soldiers assessed the stock of the keep, while Beatria looked out to the fog-veiled water through the casements of the ruin. She threw a stone, watching it skip across the ice, trailing puffs of mist before it disappeared with a splash into a crack in the surface. "No food or weapon are found, Commander," Lieutenant Ascus reported. "There's a pile of armor in the... What is this voice? There's a pile of armor in the storage, but it's definitely taken to the elements over the years. I don't know if it's salvageable at all." We won't be here long, Beatria replied. "The Nords know that we will be vulnerable when night falls, and this old rock won't hold them off." What is going on? "If there's anything to keep we can use, find it. We have to make it across the ice flow to the ridge." I can't get the same voice, don't worry about it. Just keep going. It's almost like you need a story where every single, line of dialogue is a different, character. Maybe. That would work. After a few minutes of searching and matching pieces, the guards presented two very grimly scuffed and cracked suits of chitlin armor. Even the least proud of the adventurers and pirates who had looted the castle over the years had thought the shells of chitlin benefit beneath their notice. The soldiers did not dare to clean them. The dust looked to be the only adhesive holding them together. "They won't offer as much protection, just slow us down," grimaced Ascatus. "If we run across the ice as soon as it gets dark..." Hang on, give me a minute. "Anyone can plan anyone? Anyone who can plan and execute an ambush like the war chiefs of Dawnstar will be expecting that." Are you Irish now? "We need to move quickly now, before they're any closer." Beatrice drew a map. Wait, is that actually... Oh, that was Beatrice said that. Yeah. Drew a map of the bay in the dust, and then a semicircular path across the water, an arc stretching from the castle to the Groved Ridge. "The men should go the long way across the bay like so. The ice is thick there, and there's waves to the shoreline, and there's a lot of rocks for cover." "You're not staying..." God damn it. "You're not staying behind to hold them off." Is that anything that came... Wait, who's saying that? Who's saying that? I don't know. Is there anything in the keep we can use? Find it, we must... Wait, didn't I do this already? Wait. Oh, I didn't skip to the next page. Okay, sorry about that. "You're not staying behind to hold the castle." "Of course not." Beatrice shook her head and drew a straight line from the castle to the closest shore across the bay. "I'll take one of the chitlin suits and try to cross the water here. If you don't see or hear me when you've made it to land, don't wait. Just get to Pornook." Pornook. Lieutenant Ascuscus tried to dissuade his commander, but he knew that she would never order one of her men to perform the suicidal act of diversion. That would all die before they reached the ridge, if the warlord's army was not distracted. He could only find one way to honor his duty, to protect his commanding officer. What? Nothing. Go To protect his commanding officer. It was not easy convincing Commander Butcher that he should accompany her, but at last she relented. The sun hung low, but still cast a diffused glow, illuminating the snow with a ghostly light. Yeah, ghostly, same difference. When the 5 men and 1 woman slipped through the boulders beneath the castle to the water's frozen edge, Beatrice and Arthur's couscous, shut up, stop talking, moved carefully and precisely, painfully aware of each dull crunch of chitlin armor against stone. As their commander's signal, the 4 unarmored men dashed towards the north across the ice. Beep. How many pages are there? That many. Oh, when our men had reached the first fragment of cover, a spiral of stone jutted a few yards from the base of the promontory. Beatrice turned to listen for the sound of the army above. Nothing but silence. They were still unseen, as Couscous nodded, his eyes through the helm showing no fear. The commander and her lieutenant stepped onto the ice and began to run. When Betia had surveyed the bay from the castle ramparts, the crossing closest to shore had seemed like a vast, featureless plain of white. Now that she was down on the ice, it was even more flat and stark. The sheet of mist rose only up to their ankles. but it billowed up at their approach, like the hand of nature itself was pointing out their presence to their enemies. They were utterly exposed. It came almost as a relief when Bertria heard one of the war chief's scouts whistle a signal to his masters. They didn't have to turn around to see if the army was coming. The sound of galloping hooves and crush of trees giving way was very clear over the whistling wind. Bertria wished she could risk a glance to the north to see if her men were hidden from view, but she didn't dare. She could hear Ice running to her right, keeping pace, breathing hard. He was used to wearing heavy armor, but the chitin joints were so brittle and tight from years of disuse, it was all he could to bend them. The rocky shore to the ridge still looked an eternity away. God, the spelling. Still looked an eternity away when Bertria felt and heard the first volley of arrows. Most struck the ice at their feet with sharp cracking sounds, but a few nearly found home, ricocheting off their backs. She silently offered a prayer of thanks to whatever anonymous shellsmith, now long dead, had crafted the armor. They continued to run, as the first rain of arrows was quickly followed by a second and a third. Thanks, Stender! As Couscous gasped. If there was only leather in the keep, we'd be pierced through and through. Now, if only it weren't so rigid. Bertria felt her own armor joints begin to set, her knees and hips finding more and more resistance with every step. There could be no denying it. They were drawing closer towards the shore, but they were running much, much more slowly. She heard the first dreadful galloping crunch of the army across the floe towards them. The riders were cautious on the slippery ice, not driving their horses at full speed, but Bertria knew that they would soon be upon the two of them soon. I said soon twice. Sorry. Fuck that up. It's fine. The old Shetland armor could withstand the bite of a few arrows, but not the lance driven with full force from a galloping horse. It's not full force. They just literally just said that they're not riding at full force. You know what I meant. The only great unknown was time. And the thunder of beating hooves was deafening behind them when Couscous and Bertria reached the edge of the shore. The giant jagged stones that strung around the beach blockaded the approach. Beneath their feet, the ice sighed and cracked. They could not stand still, run forward, nor run back. Straining against the tired metal in the armor joints, they took 2 bounds forward and flew at the boulders. The first landing on the ice sounded an explosive crack. When they rose for the final jump, it was on a wave of water so cold it felt like fire through the thin armor. As Couscous' white arm found purchase in a deep fissure, Bertria gripped with both hands, but her boulder was slick with frost. Faces pressed to the stone, they could not turn to face the army behind them. But they heard the ice splintering, and the soldiers cry out in terror for just an instant. Then there was no sound but the whining of the wind and the purring lap of the water. A moment later, there were footsteps on the cliff above. The 4 guardsmen had crossed the bay. There were 2 to pull Bertria up from the face of the boulder, and another 2 for our Couscous. They strained and swore at the weight, but finally they had their commander and their lieutenant safely on the edge of Couscous Ridge. By Mara, that's heavy for light armor. Yes, smiled Bertria warily, looking back over the empty, broken ice floe, the cracks radiating from the parallel paths she and Couscous had run. But sometimes that's good. Alright. That was an interesting book, an interesting tale. Ice and Chitin by Plitus Spick. But for now, This has been another reading of the Elder Scrolls. Alright. But for now, my name is Leo, and I will see you next time.